let's continue the deep dive into this case study for this client profile for a 33-year-old mom with 3 kids living in Idaho. We are balancing out our portfolio, which is heavy with retirement and investments and lacking in financial protection. So we're adding permanent life insurance, and I'm using an index universal life in this case. What we did in the past is we looked at her insurable needs. So if you're interested to see that, you can go back to the previous episodes, the previous live streams that I did, where I talked about those in detail. Now, for this specific episode, though, so what I wanted to do was to use the illustration, and then we would stress test this design, this particular design, this structure where we only have $150,000 face value in the IUL, and the remaining $600,000 was put in a term rider. So I'm going to stress test this policy design. And the way we do that is we use artificial intelligence. We use AI. That's one good thing that you can use AI for, because definitely AI is very, very, very capable in doing the math, in doing the calculations. And in this particular stress testing, we don't just stay with a single number. Remember when we look at the three tables of the illustration, the guaranteed, the alternate projection, and the current projections, right? With the alternate projections, we use 3.5%. With the current projections, we use an average of 6.8%. We even looked at 4% or 5%. How that's going to affect the survivability of the policy. We saw the policy is able to survive the entire life of the client, but we used a single number, right? A single number. But that's not how the index works, right? When we're tracking an index, for example, the S&P 500, what we expect is the index to be going up and down. It will have cycles. It will have up cycles. It will have down cycles. It's volatile, right? It's unpredictable. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, right? What we can do is we can take the historical performance of the S&P 500 from 1918 until present time, right? Plug that in to the AI's calculation. The AI will use that. We'll use all those different up and downs in the market. So we already know that those were actual rates that happened in the past. So we use that to run simulations, thousands of simulations, using the historical S&P 500, scrambling the different ups and downs of the market. And the goal is to see if the policy will be able to survive all those ups and downs. So that's what AI does. We plug in the cap, for example, and the floor, and we let it check the survivability of the policy. For example, will it survive until age 100? Will it survive until age 121? And then we also look at the ranges of the possible cash values, right? So in standard illustration, you get a single number in terms of cash value, but really, depending on the performance of the index, it's mostly going to be in a window or in a range, right? So we look at the range that's possible based on historical S&P 500 actual returns. Okay, so we don't just use one AI. What we did here is we used 3 different AIs so that we can counter check the calculations. We use Grok, we use Claude, and we also use Gemini, right? So we plug in the illustrations into those 3 different AIs, and we ask the AI to run 5,000 simulations of historical S&P 500 returns. All right, so what are the results? Let's go with Gemini first. So Gemini, what Gemini is showing here, based on the illustration, right, and using historical S&P 500 returns, all right, the policy survivability rate to age 100 is 100%, right? Policy survivability rate to age 121 is 100% as well, based on Gemini. And we look at the different cash value, uh, 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 the growth of the cash value. We look at the ranges. We look at the percentile. So depending on uh, the the movement of the index, right? So in those 5,000 simulations, there would be several simulations that are a string of downturns, would have a string of downturns. There are several simulations that would have a string of upturns, and there would be simulations that would be in between. So that's how the distribution of the different simulations would look like. So with so we got different numbers through the different ages, and we look at the different percentiles. So the lowest percentile would show, those simulations that have a lot of downturns, and the higher percentile would show simulations with a lot of upside, of good times, right? So let's look at age 65, for example. The 50th percentile, around the middle, right? Cash value could be at 571,000 dollars. At age 75, the median is at 1.1 million, and at age 85, it's at 2.38 million. So that's kind of lining up with what we had here, right? Here we're showing age 90, 2.4 million. Here, age 85, 2.38 million. Now that's the middle, the median, 50th percentile. If you look at the range for the 10th percentile, the simulations that have more downturns, okay, at age 65, there could be $460,000 of cash value. At age 75, it could be $894,000 of cash value, and age 85, it could possibly be 1.7 million, right? So I'm not pulling those numbers from the air. Those are actual numbers from the calculation from Gemini. If you look at the 90th percentile, there are more good times than bad times in the market or in the index. So at age 65, it could be up to $689,000. At age 75, 1.47 million, and at age 85, $3.13 million. So that's what Gemini returned. Okay, so we're starting to look good. Survivability of the policy is good. The cash value generated, we saw the ranges, right? We saw how low it can go, and we saw how high it can go. But overall, it's providing a good safety net, a good financial safety net. All right, so let's move on to the next AI, which is Claude. What did Claude say? Right, so now we're looking at Claude. Okay, so from the 5,000 independent simulations, okay, look at the survivability. Okay, so there we are. Right. Here's the survivability chart. Right, to age 100, 100% survivability. To age 121, also 100% survivability. So the policy would be able to outlast or withstand the ups and downs in the market. So definitely, this gives confidence that the policy can survive as long as the client right? And the policy will be able to fulfill its promise of financial protection for the client and for the family that the client leaves behind, right? So 100% survivability of the policy. The cash value ranges. For example, age 65, the median, let's look at the median, $578,000. So it's almost close to what Gemini had. Age 75, 1.17 million. Again, close to what Gemini calculated. And at age 85, 2.4 million. So again, close to what Gemini calculated and almost lining up with the illustration, right? In fact, it's showing that on the 50th percentile or on the median, the average rate of return is somewhere around 8.4%. So that's good. So, these calculations, these results from Gemini and from Claude is basically it's not a guarantee, right? It's not 100% guarantee, but what it's able to provide is some insight to give confidence about the capability of the policy to be able to withstand the ups and downs in the market and the kind of protection that it's able to provide. So we saw some alignment, consistency in terms of the cash value. We also saw consistency in terms of the survivability, right? So two AIs done. Now let's look at the third AI calculation. The third one, we use Grok, right? So in Grok, again, we plug in numbers from the illustration, and then we plug in also the historical S&P 500 performance, and we ask Grok to run the simulations, okay? And from there, okay, now let's look at Grok's survivability rate for the policy. Grok is showing a little, I would say Grok is a bit more conservative, because here, to the age of 100, Grok is saying survivability is between 97 to 99%. So definitely very conservative. To age 121, Grok is saying the survivability is between 82 to 92%, right? But it's still high. It's still significant survivability. Anything above 60%, I would consider as a good survivability rate. But here we're at the 90s, right? We're at the 90s. To age 100, we're at the higher 90s, right? Now let's look at the cash value ranges here. And again, I'm not pulling numbers out of the air here. This is all based on math that Grok did, and numbers don't lie. At age 65, median is Grok is saying between 850 to 1 million. At age 75, it could be between 1.9 million to 2.3 million. And at age 85, it could be between 3.7 million to 4.7 million, right? So that's based on Grok's calculations. If we look at the results from three different AIs, all three different AIs, with the exemption of Grok showing high survivability, but in terms of Grok being a little bit more conservative, showing 97 to 99%. Overall, still, it's showing the policy has a high survivability rate. So it's good confidence, it gives good confidence in terms of uh, the policy's performance. So that's an example of how we stress test a policy design. My contact information, oops, it's down here. Here's my contact information. I'm open to help answer your questions. You can leave me a text or a voicemail, or you can DM me for your inquiries, right? So thanks for listening. Thanks for your time this evening. I hope you have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you guys in the next one when we continue to tackle this case study.